Okay, I convened the January 19, 2022 regular board meeting to order at 7 p.m. Beth, would you call the roll, please?
Marjorie Bartelli,
Here.
Karen Larson,
Here.
Jenny Norton,
Here.
Liz Sullivan,
Here.
Emily Swistak,
Here.
Lorna Turner,
Here.
and Sarah Wynn.
Here.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is the opportunity for visitors to speak. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Seeing as no one is here.
No one's online. No.
We'll continue to agenda item number 3, acknowledges that trustee Sullivan and trustee Turner reviewed the December billings in January, and that vice president Swistak and trustee Wynn will review the January billings in February. Agenda item 4 is consent agenda. Is there a trustee who wishes to pull something from the consent agenda? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Sullivan.
And I'll second Lorna Turner.
Any discussion? I noticed one note in the special meeting minutes. There's no date. It says January 2022, but it doesn't say January 7th. So just a slight correction.
Yeah, we'll make that
We may
correction.
note that.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda?
No.
Great. Beth, would you call the roll, please?
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
and Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Item number 5 is unfinished business, a capital improvement project. A1 is project status update. Mark Rogers from CCS, will you please update the board?
No problem. So hello, everyone. Welcome to 2022, and we're turning the calendar and hopefully into the next phases of the project. So I'll give a abbreviated update. I won't read the packet line for line. If you have any questions, you'll feel free to hop in there, but I'll start off with the progress update. In short, we have a different topic item on this, but we did receive bids as planned, and we will have a recommendation for award later on tonight. That was great news. The furniture design is still progressing, which is good news. We actually will have the first furniture bid package going out tomorrow. It's a public bid package, so it's everything specified. It's a matter of just having the public process and the public review period. So that ideally will come before the board for award in February. Same thing for the moving bid package as well as construction material testing bid packages. So all of those are going to be hitting the street, the public processes, and follow our guidelines there. We also are in the midst of the permit review process. We did receive the first round of permit review comments from the village in the middle of the holidays. Nagel Hartrade gave us their comments, and we have just sent them back to the village. That usually takes a couple rounds of back and forth to get some of these things through the villages. So that's not unheard of. We're still tracking okay there. We just need the permit in place before we start construction in the latter half of March. So we're fine there. In terms of the furniture plan update, I did provide Exhibit 1, which is a revised furniture plan from what we talked about the last board meeting. Really, it just kind of shows the different layout. There are very minor tweaks to it based on staff feedback. Also in Exhibit 2 is an example of the typical workstations in terms of finishes and kind of how they lay out for typical staff members. So if there's any questions on that, I'm here. I'll pause if there are any. But that is your Exhibit 2 in the packet. For me, it's a few pages after my writing. So you always come back to it too if you think of questions.
Karen.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I do have a question on the Karen Larson. why laminate? Are the work surfaces that on the top of the desks, they're laminate? I mean, how durable is that?
So the goal was to break up some of the look of this. So it wasn't just a white blob. And so the laminate is a heavy duty laminate. It's not, the staff actually went and saw it at the Mart.
Yeah.
Tatiana, if you want to speak to what you saw there.
Yeah, and we also had samples delivered to the library. It is a high quality laminate, and it's the staff preferred the laminate versus the metal. The metal is also a very loud kind of material. We have that now, and it's very clangy, I'll put it that way. And so it was really a staff-directed choice.
And I will say laminate is typical for library workstations on the work surfaces. That is not atypical.
Okay, I was just wondering if it was, like, I think of laminate, I think of like IKEA furniture and, it's not very durable long-term. I was just kind of curious about that.
Sure, this is a commercial grade, so you're definitely correct in that we would not be specifying like that IKEA stuff that just you can pick at the corners and it pops up. This is specially made for commercial applications and does have the warranty. To be point blank, I don't know what the warranty is right off the top of my head. I'd go to the architects for that, but it does have the commercial warranty to back it up as well. Group Lacoste is a noted manufacturer in this field as well.
Okay.
All right. Great. So that's the furniture plant update. Next month, I believe Magda and or Brianna or Amy from Shenango Hartree will be compiling a brief presentation to the board. Really, the first one is to get out the workstations. We're trying to get those workstations bought so that they are on site for the end of phase 1. So it's not guaranteed, we're trying that with supply chain issues and metal and everything else. We're working our best for that. The rest of the furniture will come after the end of phase 2, which is why that won't happen until February, March in terms of bid. Phasing and logistics update. So we did meet with staff earlier this week to go through phasing plans. I did include those plans as exhibit 3 to the board packet. Additional coordination meetings will occur in February as we move this thing forward, especially once the mover is on board. But it seems like staff have all bought into what the plan is. They're comfortable. Obviously, some questions have been raised about how we, where's a break room function? We have that prep kitchen area over here in the meeting room. How is a move going to work, and who's getting boxes and things like that? That's all stuff that we're working through right now. But it seems like the plan in place works, and that is also the one that was in the bid documents for the GC. So there's no changes to any of the impact there. The one thing I will say though in this section is that we do anticipate the library needing to close prior to the GC's work, which is the GC is supposed to start March 21st. And so we expect 2 to 3 days for abatement work prior to the 21st. We would expect that to be maybe a Wednesday through Friday, 16th through 18th potentially. We will come to the board with a recommendation for dates in February at the February board meeting. In addition to the abatement dates, we'd also be looking for some move closure dates. The plan actually, as of right now, is to move all staff in stacks before abatement, have the abatement happen for phase 1, and then have the GC come in right after that and carry on. So we'll come back in February with all those plans, but we needed to have the GC on board to make sure we have them, all the logistics worked out right. Any questions there on closures that will be potentially coming to you for?
I guess I would just have a question about, and maybe this is something you know, Mark, or maybe this is something, Tatiana, you would know. We normally work out anything with the other local libraries to let them know that there's a possibility that since we're closing for a few days, our patrons might be doing projects, being there at their libraries for those couple of days, just so that they're prepared for a few extra people and they're extra welcoming, etc. Is that
Yeah,
thing that people do or not really?
it is. I'm connected via email with a number of groups of library directors, our local group, as well as the extended group in DuPage County and beyond. There's also a listing on the Rails web e-blast and website where you can update and let everyone know, if you're closing down for a complete renovation or if you're closed due to a weather issue. And so, we would post there as well.
Okay, great.
All right, so we'll continue to follow up and we'll come with dates requested in February. Next up is the abatement update. So we did get pricing from the abatement contractors on that. Now the abatement scope is not just abatement. We actually had them add in some demolition where we have to abate some floors specifically in some areas where there's some high density shelving. Instead of having a contractor come in, demo the shelving and then leave, and then abatement come in and then remobilize the other contractors, we put it all in the abatement. And even with that scope add, it still came in within budget. So Exhibit 4 has the letter of recommendation from the environmental consultant. Essentially, we go with the lowest cost submitted quote, and that was $17,900. It does fall within the library director's signing authority, so we will just proceed with them. I just wanted to put this on there so everyone knew we were proceeding with them. It's within budget, and if there's any questions, I can stand by for those. Nope. All right. Project schedule summary, really not much to talk about there. We are on schedule. So thanks to the whole team for making that happen. So that's great. And this is, I'll remind you, this is the schedule that was set back in early 2021. So we're a year on from it and we're still on schedule. So good news there.
Yeah.
Project cost summary, we are tracking on budget. And that now includes a forecasted cost with the lowest qualified bidders number, and that's Camosi, who's on here. So upcoming activities, we will have a kickoff meeting pending award with the general contractor, but a kickoff meeting with the general contractor, the abatement contractor, as well as some different furniture meetings going on. The public furniture, as well as moving and construction material testing bids will be due before your February board meeting. We're going to approve the RFID purchase and security gate. The reason why we're doing the RFID purchase is we want that again as at the end of phase 1 to come in and put it in place once you open up for phase 2. So that looks like we're on track there. The permit fee waiver request was submitted to the village in December. The way Lisle calculates and has to work that process is they have to fully calculate the permit cost before they give it to the board. So they can't just give the board a range of costs. They have to give them every penny before they put it on the board agenda. We knew it wasn't going to be on earlier in January. We were told we weren't going to be able to do it for this last board meeting, so we're hoping the first one in February. So I'll keep everyone posted on that. That's the same date we want to go and give a public comment.
Right.
And then lastly,
So,
go ahead.
just going to ask, it goes to the village board, or does that go to the PNC?
Village board only. It's just
Okay.
dollars and cents. Yep.
Okay,
Mark, on very last sentence on page 35, the exterior signage package,
Mhm.
it's separate from the building permit. So,
That was a village request. We submitted the signs that are all around the building except for the main key sign at the corner as part of the building permit. We knew that main sign out there we were going to take some time to design and do separately,
okay,
but they asked for all permit signs, all signs except for handicap to be in a separate package. Which, no harm, no foul. We'll do that.
okay.
And that'll be in the next couple months. So that being said, I'm going to jump into the contractor bid process. In short, the Lisle Library District is recommended to award the general contract for the Lisle Library District renovation project to Camosi, because they were the lowest pre-qualified responsive bid. They did not have any exclusions or substitutions or clarifications made to the bid. There were no issues noted with the submittal. Camosi did submit a preliminary project schedule that is in compliance with the bid requirements. And their base bid was in the amount of $5,296,700. That included an allowance for tuck pointing if needed. And there was a record of all the bids in Exhibit 5. There also were a number of alternates that we'll go through here today. Before we do that, though, I do want to give Tim from Camosi an opportunity to introduce himself, his firm, and some of the things that he'd like to touch base about this project on. So, Tim, I'll turn it to you.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Nice to see you all again, and it's fantastic. Number maybe that we saw you last time, so kind of excited to be involved in the project. I just refresh everybody's memory. Excuse me. I built 2 libraries growing up, and I'm currently in a renovation, UW Wisconsin Parkside in Summers, Wisconsin, which is their library, and 2 of the 5 floors have been gutted and redone at this time with major mechanical upgrades. So sliding into your project is going to be a little bit easier than what I'm dealing with right now. And that project's slated to end here in April, so the timing fits really well. So we're happy to be on board and looking forward to the project.
So with the bid, we did have 9 alternates submitted. And in short, I can go one by one. But 2 of the alternates in the bid packet, you can see, were not recommended at this time. They're actually recommended to be declined. There's no board action is needed for that. It's just to kind of formalize it that we don't need to keep kicking it around. One of them was for the rubber flooring throughout the entire Department of Youth Services. Now, there will be rubber flooring in the children's play area where it gets kind of messier and everything else. The $68,000 price tag on that, CCS believes, and even Shenango Hartree believes that that's too much risk to take out of your contingency for other things that might happen, right? We haven't opened up any walls yet. We don't know what we're going to find back there to enable that one. So I think that we didn't see enough value to take on that risk of rubber flooring for youth services.
I did discuss that with the director of youth services, and he's 100% okay with that as well.
There we go. Good. So we have staff buy-in as well. The other one is the back of house lighting reduction. We don't feel you need to take because we want new lighting back there if we can afford it. Bids came in where we needed them to come in, so you can't afford putting in the new lighting so that all the lighting throughout the space basically is new and matches. So you're not trying to piecemeal things later on. The other items, so 1 through 3 have deal with the meeting room and some of the AV pieces. Those are things we'll most likely come back to the board for as the project rolls and we have some money freed up potentially, or we get through and we're not as scared about unknown risks. And those are all part of phase 2. The family restroom finish replacement, that scope will be coming back to you shortly. I do think we will want to approve that one, most likely in February. We are doing the reconfiguration of that space with the new doors. The one base scope is that you're going to leave like the tile finishes and things like that in there. We are going to come back to you. We wanted to make sure that what's included in that $22,900 is exactly what the designers want and exactly what the library wants, and we'll finalize that and get that back to you in February. The other ones, the masonry cleaning, the deduct for exterior masonry painting, and the deduct for interior masonry painting. Again, not recommended for award at this time because they're not critical. They'll become critical sooner than later, but I know the board is interested in seeing that paint sample before we approve it one way or the other. Any questions on alternates or any disagreements with the recommendations?
Do you have a question? When you say interior masonry, what exactly is that?
So there is stone walls, the stone walls that are outside that kind of jut out. They actually carry on in the interior. And the base scope has us painting those walls to match the interior paint. So
Gotcha.
the thought is that you probably will want to do that. So in other words, it is included in the base cost to paint it. This would be the cost to not paint it, essentially. So again, we think we decline it.
Okay.
So, Mark, just to clarify, then, at this time, none of the alternates are going to be incorporated.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I will say that when we go through this, say we wait 5 months, 6 months, or something like that to enact one of the meeting room AV type items. So the board knows there is some cost risk to the library for that. Costs might creep up a little bit or change a little bit, right? And we have these costs. They're not locked in stone for all the alternates. They're locked in stone for a period of time that's in the bid. But it's basically a small insurance policy, not awarding those now, to know that you have money for them later. hopefully Tim can work out some deals and we can get it at least close, if not those costs. But I just want to make sure there's no preconception that those are guaranteed for the whole duration of the project. But at the same time, we don't necessarily want to go recommending spending $30,000 on EV equipment, which could be done later. It could be done, it could be done at any time. That's our insurance policy, not. Any questions there or thoughts? No. All right. So I believe that's all I had for right now. So the last part of this is an action item for the board to consider for the approval to award the renovation project construction contract to Camosi Incorporated with the base bid lump sum of $5,296,700 with the board president as signatory to the contract documents.
And there's, the motion should be read verbatim, whoever makes the motion. So,
I hear a motion.
I move to award the renovation project construction contract to Camosi Incorporated with the base bid lump sum of $5,296,700 with LLD board president Bartelli as signatory to the contract documents.
I second. This was Vice President Swistak.
Discussion? Beth, would you call the roll?
Okay, Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
I,
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
and Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Motion carries. Well, Tim, we're very excited.
yeah.
So are we.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Can we start tomorrow?
Tim will. But I wanted to say congrats to the Lisle Library Board and the whole library, though. It's a huge step here. You'll see the next month update for the project summary of the costs. You'll have a big number in that committed column, and that's a huge step to take. So congrats to the board.
Okay. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming on online, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Need me to come down there, whatever, we'll be happy to do so.
Have a good night.
Feel free to sign off, Tim.
I'll sign off. Take care.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Agenda item number 6, committee reports. Finance, any report?
No report. We did not meet this month.
Thank you. Personnel and policy.
Okay, we met on December 29th. We discussed 3 policies at that meeting. One, we already approved, whenever that was. I feel like time is a blur right now, but recently we had a special meeting and we approved that policy. And then there's 2 more that are coming to the full board tonight. So we did that. And then we also talked about the director evaluation process. And we had talked at that meeting about wanting to discuss it with the full board in January, but then I forgot to contact Marjorie to get it on the agenda to discuss. So I would like to request that we have an item on the agenda for our February meeting where we can discuss it as a whole. Our committee felt that it was important to discuss with the whole board our thoughts and feelings about revising the evaluation process for the future. So what we determined as a committee was that it would be best to continue doing what we did the previous years, just with everything going on with the renovation, with COVID, with all of this that's going on, and keeping it that way. And then for the future, so that we are in place with this new format, procedure, whatever we're going to do before fiscal year 2022, 2023 starts, so that the director knows way in advance what we would like to see for that evaluation cycle. So that's where we're at right now. And we will talk more in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
physical.
Hey,
plant?
Emily? Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Do we, and pardon me because I don't know our policies well enough, do we have like a written policy that we, should be reading or if not, what's your vision or?
No. So we don't have a policy. We had talked about creating a procedure and having kind of a timeline for when we would do things, and we talked about that in the past. But again, then it was COVID hit, and then we had all this stuff with the renovation, and things just kind of kept spiraling, and the committee wasn't able to meet. We couldn't get our schedules together to mesh so that we could meet. And so there just, a lot has been going on. Excuse me. And the previous iteration of the board, we lost some of the members of the committee, and so we needed to wait until we onboarded new trustees and then the new committee and all of that. So we've talked about in the past, we talked about having a procedure, but there's not an official policy, if that makes sense. So one of the things that we want to talk about at the board meeting as a whole is just kind of talking with the full board about, okay, what we've done in the past, and then elements that we like about what we've been doing currently or been asking the director to do currently, and if there are elements of that procedure or what we've done in the past that we would like to change. Talking about goal setting, which we've talked about before. We talked about, board directed goals versus director having self goals, and things like that. So it was just kind of like, we never got fully through that, setting up the procedure that we want to see it be. And in the past, before Marjorie was president, it was even just the previous board presidents. It was just, okay, just write something up and then we'll go from there. And that doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't really help with, it doesn't give us the opportunity to set goals or for the director to set goals and for us to say, okay, how is this progressing? And as you know, I mean, the director does so much that even unbeknownst to us, and I think it was really evident just when COVID first hit, and just her ability to continue on with the library and figuring out what to do and how to do, curbside pickups and all of that stuff, and opening up the library again to patrons and all those things. And so we haven't been in a situation where we felt like that the director was not successful in her job. It's just more of an idea that it can be more, just more structured, the process to be more structured, I think is what I'm hoping for. And as a committee, we kind of talked about that's what, we would like to see for the future, just to make it easier. So the director doesn't say, well, I don't, and not that the director has said this, but so that I don't feel like, saying, well, I don't know what I should do for this. So we want to make it clearer, and we've talked about just for this current year that we're in, what the director had done in the past, which was gave us like little snapshots of month to month, what she has accomplished and how it ties into the strategic plan, and some of those extra things she does, like the grant writing and all the things with the renovation project and all of that. But really the biggest thing for me is just kind of having the process more streamlined and clear.
I'm just wondering, how when we've done, can't remember what they were, but we contacted, and I guess Tatiana, you did this, where we've contacted other libraries and we've asked them, like, hey, what do you do for this? And to me, it's a lot easier for me to react to something and say, hey, I like paragraph or item 2 on this page, and I like item 3, 4, and 5 on this page.
So what was?
Oh, go ahead.
No, so what the committee was, what we were talking about, hoping to have this discussion.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
There was a, keep going.
Don't know where that came from. But what we were hoping was that we could talk about the current process that we've been following and say what we like from there or what we think we might want to change, just so we can kind of have that general discussion. And then the committee is going to work on the actual process procedure. And then we'll bring it back to the full board like we do with the policies. Once we've worked on them, then we'll come back to the full board and say, okay, this is what we're looking at, and get the input of the full board.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, that's kind of some of the stuff that we want to discuss, as a full board. And so I appreciate you asking those questions, because then it gives everyone else kind of the opportunity to have a little bit in their brains now to think about for the next time we meet. Jenny and Sarah, did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, sorry, that if you didn't just say, but that we want to kind of have it in place by the end of this fiscal year so that we can start the next fiscal year with the new process, whatever.
Yes. And I mentioned that we wanted it in place before the next fiscal year starts so that the director knows what's going on. Yep. Thank you.
Physical plant?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you, Karen. And advocacy and outreach?
Oh, okay. Advocacy and outreach committee. I guess that's redundant, so it's advocacy and outreach committee. Let's see. We met in January, I think it was the 13th, and I think, Tatiana, you want to give an update on, and maybe the last update you gave us on donations is still current. I think you said that the foundation had donated $3,000, and then from non-foundation sources, we had another $1,205.
Actually,
So,
I have a more of an update since then, but do you want me to give that now in terms of dollar amount?
Whatever's good. If you want to, that's okay. You can put whenever it's comfortable for you.
Okay.
If we can go on and just say, Tatiana will give that to us during her part of the presentation. So what we talked about during that committee edition is that we wanted to make 5 recommendations to the board and get board's feelings on these. What I'll do is I'll read through all 5 and then maybe we'll go back and discuss them. Or we could discuss each one after I read them. I think it's more efficient though if we go through all 5 and then we discuss them. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Okay. First one, since the directors already received a donation from the foundation, we're going to ask the director to reach out to the Friends organization. We did already mail them request for a donation. So she was going to follow up with the Friends organization. The second thing is to put the donation information onto the website. And the third thing was to put the donation information to the donation form. We saw it on that donation letter everybody saw at the last meeting. Put that in the newsletter. So we have a newsletter mailing coming up. And then to do more within the library with the whole donation and fundraising process. Some ideas we had, we talked about displaying fundraising results to date. For example, we talked about having them in chart form or having them in, do you guys remember the thermometer format? We used to see various fundraising items, and also involving children, and perhaps having a Lightzilla little coloring page that they could each sit and color and then post it on the wall. And so we would have a page, a whole wall of these coloring pages full of colored in Lightzillas. And it would also create, people would ask, well, what's it? How come my kid doesn't color one? Oh, here, let me give you one. Have your child color in it. Oh, you want to hear more about it? That way it gives people an opportunity just to learn about fundraising project. We also discussed in the library flyers, and we're thinking just the tri-fold flyer type of thing. And then in our next AOC meeting, we would plan to discuss fundraising from businesses. Our corporate foundations that we can solicit, there are some Lisle-based businesses that have not been hit as hard during the pandemic as some others. We also talked about Chamber has a system whereby we can e-blast out to all their members, so we can send them our solicitation letter, be e-blasted out. And some of the other ideas we talked about were the Rotary, et cetera. So that's kind of the package of ideas that we had come or discussed at our meeting. So we wanted to give the whole board an opportunity to talk about them and say, yes, we're good with your package, or no, we need this changed or that changed. So we want you to go over them now more slowly, one by one, and we want to chat about them. How do you guys want to proceed? And I'll speak at once.
I guess maybe do it one by one. Kind of get a temperature gauge on how everybody's feeling for each one.
That'd be great. The first one was for asking the director to reach out to the Friends organization, since we've already received a donation. It was a quite healthy donation of $3,000 from the foundation. We have sent a letter to the Friends, as we did to the foundation. The Friends, we haven't heard back from, so we were going to ask the director to reach out to them and kind of follow up with that letter. So is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Getting a lot of nods?
Yeah.
Next one was putting our fundraising info on the website.
Right.
Getting a lot of nods. Being the donation information and a form in the newsletter. At one nod.
Yes.
You guys on the committee, you don't count. Sorry.
I think, Liz, that would be beneficial, considering that there's an email going around about, we're soliciting seniors. Well, yes, I think that the more information we have out there for our patrons and the public, and what it is and what we're trying to achieve, the better it is. It's like you're covering all your bases.
That is so interesting you say that. I ran into somebody just today who lives in Lily's neck of the woods, Steeple Run. And she said to me, I love the library. I go to their fiction club. And she said, I don't know anything about this fundraising project. I know you're on the library board. And we chatted and all this stuff. And I'm like, this would be really good to put it out in the newsletter. And to your point, Karen, people who, don't know. So I think that would be good to put it out there, and everybody who wants to know would know then.
Right.
Then the next item was donation info in the library. Maybe doing it, and you know, we don't know what form it would take yet. Some people like the thermometer, you know, fundraising. Here's the 15,000 we want to raise. We're 28% of the way there, you know, with red thermometer line going up, or maybe we make it a chart. Format we haven't really settled on. That way people can, you know, look at it while they're in the library, ask questions about it. Then the other item in terms of thing the library patrons involved was to have children being able to color a little light Zilla on a little, you know, 8.5 by 11 sheet, and you know, have a librarian post it on the wall. Also, you know, putting those 3-fold flyers by the each desk. What do you guys think of those ideas?
All great ideas. The more they know, the, you know, maybe we'll get more donations. I don't know. I mean, it can't hurt to cover all bases.
I really like the idea of like the thermometer kind of thing that has like, this is our goal, and then periodically it's updated and we can see where we're at the different times. In talking about the coloring pages, you know, with in-person programs being suspended at the library now just because of the increased number of COVID cases, and then with the renovation, we might not have as many children coming in. So maybe if there's a way that it's like a half sheet of paper or something and it's in bags. So if people are doing curbside pickup, or if they're, you know, whatever, that it's, because sometimes you get, like when you check out materials, they put, you know, papers or flyers or whatever in there. And if that could go in the bag, and then it's just like a note, like, please, you know, color this and return it to the library, you know, when you get a chance or whatever. And so it, you know, it'd be nice to have some in person for them to sit at the table and do, kind of like the Cards for Kids that's going on right now. But then also something that could go home with patrons' bags, and then they could return it at a later date, I think would be helpful too, just because of the fact that there may be fewer children going in and out of the library now, or at least staying there for a long period of time because of in-person programming being suspended. So that's just a thought.
Yeah. Where do you think Tatiana and Sam make sense to go like that direction?
Oh yeah, it's a great idea.
Then in our next AOC meeting, what we want to talk about is, okay, we think that we'll be able to touch a lot of the households, putting it in the newsletter. What that still doesn't touch are businesses. And there are actually corporate foundations, and we got money. They're gonna give it away, and it's kind of like we can compete for that money. Somebody giving to an area that is not something that we would ever qualify for. Obviously, there's no sense of us, you know, trying for that money. I guess what we wanted to just let you guys know is one of the ideas we have is to investigate these corporate foundations, see, are any of them, you know, supportive of libraries, supportive of youth learning, and supportive of, you know, making sure that all youth, regardless of stage of development, have an opportunity. Those are the kind of foundations we would go after. Other thing is, there are some Lisle-based businesses that were not as hard hit during the pandemic, and they are still willing to donate, able to donate, and have actually already donated. But we would want to judiciously decide who to approach that way. And, you know, the Chamber and the Rotary, maybe some other organizations that we're not even thinking of, have things like the e-blast to all of their members. So how do you feel about businesses and that approach?
So here's a question that I have about that, just based on the letter that we already have out there, it's more targeted, right? It's specific. Like you were personally addressing them, personally signing them, all of that. And I feel like if it's going to be kind of a blast, that it might need to be tweaked a little bit, the messaging, the way that the messaging goes out. Because in those instances, it wouldn't be as personalized, right? If it's just part of an e-blast going to, tons of different people who may or may not have a connection to the library, it's not going to have the same meaning that the letters that you've already sent out. So it might just need to be tweaked a little bit, or approached in a different way, or the messaging needs to be a little bit different. Maybe, I don't know. That's just kind of my first thought, just because I'm thinking about how personalized the initial letters were.
Right. And some of the businesses, if particular trustees, and this would, I would think, include trustees, even if you're not on the AOC team, if there's a business you have a certain connection with, I would think going to talk to them in advance, even for sending anything out, might be a nice approach. Because that personal connection might be more important and a better result than, receiving something in the mail. So, Annie, you're being quiet. I'm going to pick on you now.
I don't really have any strong thoughts here, honestly. I mean, I like what the committee is coming up with, and I don't want to get in the way. I commented on the letter that we sent, and I'll continue to add where I feel like I can add, but I'm not at all. I just don't feel like I have anything more to suggest, and I don't feel like I want to, take away from anything that you guys are recommending.
Okay, how about you, Marjorie? Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just wondering the thoughts of the board on whether we have a consensus as to the library doing the contacting as an organization. If I believe we had a discussion about individual trustees not personally approaching businesses or residents for that matter. So I think we need to have some kind of agreement on how we feel about that. We did discuss it. We went over some guidelines at the special meeting, and we also discussed it again in the AOC meeting. So is this the time, Tatiana, you think we should have that general discussion now?
Yeah, I mean, this is what Trustee Sullivan's asking for consensus on the recommendation. So this is the time to discuss it.
Well, I think we decided too that we would not go out on our own without permission from the board. I mean, if any of us, I was just looking up on my phone, I worked for Boeing for a number of years there, and I see that their application process, they have grants that are available in the area of education, arts, things of that sort. And I think there's a May 1st deadline to get it in in the education area. So we've got some deadlines here that we would have to make to get that grant. And it's Chicago. Boeing does things by regions, and this is what their Chicago office does. They'll do grants for the different. It's an employee-based foundation, but we had agreed that nobody would strike out on their own and do that without the entire board agreeing that yes, that would be the way to go for whatever reason, whether it was Boeing or whether it was Yerba Buena on Main Street, that we're not going to approach them unless everybody agrees. And I'm thinking it's more of a, when something comes up like that, we would go to the board and say, okay, what do you think? What should we do? And we would talk it through at that point in time and determine whether or not the library does the grant, or I do the grant because, I was familiar with it, or, whatever it might be.
And I can agree with you in that case, Lorna. I can also tell you that there are some people, like I happen to know a guy who runs a chapter of the Odd Fellows. I can tell you that when I raised money for Family Shelter Service, he went to their national and he got me $1,000 from their national. Now, I mean,
And that's fine, as long as the board agrees. We talk about it, we think about what the potential is, what the downsides are, the upsides, and if the board agrees that you can go ahead and approach this person for money, I don't see anything wrong with doing that as long as the board is in agreement. But that's the way we should pursue it, whether the request comes from the library because you've given them the contact name, or you do it yourself. I think, again, I think we decided at the advocacy meeting, the outreach and advocacy meeting, that we would not do anything without the board's knowledge and approval.
and I'm okay with that, but that will dramatically slow the process. And it can't come from the library because he's not going to open it. I'm going to talk to him the next time he and his wife, my husband, and I go out to dinner, or we go swimming at their pool. You know, not this time of year. It's not. He doesn't even live in Lisle.
But in that instance, I think you need to come to the board, be very transparent about what you're doing, and we all vote as to whether we think that that would be appropriate or not.
And if we're concerned about speed, I mean, we did just have a special meeting to approve a single policy just to get things in line for where they needed to be. So I think the board is ready, willing, and able to convene when needed to keep things moving in a timely manner, even over and above what we're already doing to try to keep things at a good pace. So, you know, as fast as you can come up with things that need approval, I think we can get that going. We won't be a clock.
And I just will share with you, and then I'm going to let it drop. Two things, Jenny. Lady who owns the company who cleans my house. I talked to her before we had any of the rules about, because I've done fundraising before, all these people have given money to wherever I can. And the minute we decided to fundraise, the methodology I've used at other places, maybe because they weren't government entities, was create buzz. You talk to everybody. But she told me she was going to write a check for $250 to the library. Okay, so at that point, we hadn't had all the rules laid out. Okay, so that's like $250 to the library that we would have had to convene. My husband and I were out, and I talked to some other people before we had the meeting that said, you know, you gotta get everything approved. My husband and I were out. I'd already talked to this gentleman. And we were out for dinner Saturday night. The guy said, well, what about this? You talked to me about this before. And I said, yes. He asked me, are you guys still doing this? I said, yes. Opens up his register, takes out 20s. He says, here, gives them to me. He says, want it anonymous? Take this. I don't want to be on any list. I wasn't going to tell him, no, I'm not going to take it. Brought it into Tatiana, who signed appropriate paperwork. Just telling you, when you talk about this, that's how it kind of works.
Okay.
And if you want everything to come from the library, that's fine. I haven't talked to anybody since. I'm just telling you, I would probably want to convene everybody once a week. I mean, I would rather have a say, you can go after this class of business. You can go after this group of people. There are some people that we can't go after, and that's how we should decide it. Not one business at a time.
I don't think it sounds like it would need to be one business at a time. If you've got proposals, whenever that interval is that you want to bring these proposals to the board, however many it is, we can talk about them and agree as a group, right? It's just got to be agreed how the approach is done as a group. I think that's what the committee is saying, and that makes sense to me. It shouldn't, bring things to a screeching halt. And obviously, there's Liz, the board member, and there's Liz, the private citizen, and we also have conversations about how much we love the library as a private citizen and talk to people about what places we donate to as a private citizen. And that won't stop, shouldn't stop. But, there's been a line, I guess, where, now if it's soliciting for donations, it's not that somebody just dropped money on you with Sullivan and said, like, here, give this to the library. Now it's like we're talking about like Zillow, we're talking about those projects. And, when we get into that, that's where it's like, okay, well, wait a second. Great, I'm glad you're interested. We have a process. We want to make sure that the board as a whole is comfortable with this before we go further. I mean, I think that's just what I heard before of what the committee is coming up with and what we as a board seem to like. We like consensus, right? And we like, we talked about the policies that do exist and, making sure that things are consistent and that everyone is aware and stuff like that. So, all of those things kind of put together, the happy medium here of not discouraging any donations or slowing down all of the great fundraising that you're capable of doing, but at the same time making sure that there's alignment, consistency, consensus coming from the board when it's you being a representative of the board, not Liz private citizen. I think that's the distinction. Then we want to get together.
My question to the board,
that
do you want a list? I mean, I can give you a long list and we can, if that's what you want, I'll give you a list. I've already turned in like 1,000 names, Tatiana. Can just ship them out to everybody.
Well, I would just like to remind everybody that we have to follow best practices. Liz, since you brought it up about the private citizen who opened up his cash register and started handing you money, that's a great thing. I wish you'd give us the $7.5 million that we need to renovate the library, but there are so many things that could go wrong with that. And because of that, we needed to contact our attorney to ask the questions. There isn't anything to say that if you walk in here with cash money from a resident, he could say, or she could say, somewhere down the road, that they gave you $300 and you handed us $200. Now, where's the liability there? Are we going to protect our trustee, our library, both? We have to have a policy and some kind of procedure to follow. We cannot just have our trustees. I think it's great that you want to raise money for the library. We all do. Look how successful we've been thus far. But so far, we have followed most of our procedures. And we're doing it the right way. We have to continue to do that. There's no other way to do it. So I would like to hear from all of my fellow trustees about how you feel about individuals approaching residents and businesses on their own. Now, what I'm talking about as a trustee and as a private citizen, again, we have to follow the procedures. We just have to. It opens up too much liability for the library. And that is what is key here, is the library and not our own personal fundraising efforts. So please, I haven't heard from Sarah. I hate to do this to you, but would you like to comment?
I want to go back to something that Karen had said earlier, because I too got the email where this individual was saying that we're targeting, soliciting senior citizens. I want to alleviate, I want to be able to avoid situations like that. I can just say, no, we did not do that. And to push back and if we ever come face to face with them. But again, we've got naysayers out there that are going to be slinging mud. And so I think we have to be careful. We need to take the high road in these instances and be sure that we follow the letter of whatever law that the library is abiding by.
I agree. You at that special special meeting, you outlined it very clearly as to what we were to do, and it was to be a group vote in pursuing it. I will not personally go out and solicit individuals or businesses on my own without board approval. I mean, we all agreed to do that at the meeting in January. You know, early January, that, you know, we were gonna follow these guidelines. And I think we need to continue to follow them.
Tatiana, would you care to share your conversation with our attorney? I mean, as far as you spoke with him.
Well, I was mostly concerned about protecting the library, protecting trustees. So I just, number one, the attorney suggested having a paper trail. That is best practice. In the case of receiving anonymous donations, he said, you know, absolutely we can accept anonymous donations. Again, even if someone writes a check and says they want to remain anonymous, we can still honor that. But having that paper trail is important. Now, he also mentioned we could restrict donations to being everything but cash, but then that restricts us from receiving donations. So, you know, we probably don't want to do that. So accepting cash is absolutely okay. But again, having a paper trail, having an internal document that you give to, you keep for our records, as well as provide the donor so that they have a record of that is good. In the case of Trustee Sullivan accepting cash, we created an internal document that did the best we could to protect the trustee and protect the library and protect the person who was accepting the cash from the trustee. So there's a document that says that, you know, XYZ trustee accepted this amount on this date. The library received this amount on this date. Those amounts match. And the person who accepted it signed and the trustee signs. And then the trustee gets a copy and we get a copy. So that's what kind of hoops we had to jump through for that particular occurrence. I hadn't thought that might occur, but it did. And so right now I think that's the best we can do. But again, the attorney suggested keeping as much of a paper trail as possible for everybody's protection and for everybody's record keeping.
I agree.
One thing I did want to say is I did not contact this person after we had that meeting where we talked about the policy, contacted them before. So I have not contacted anybody after we had the meeting and we approved the policy.
I just want to add that I do think it's vital that we follow the policy that we approved at the special meeting in January that said that none of us are going to go out on our own without full board approval. You know, and I was looking back through the minutes from the special meeting, and you know, and it's in there. It's on page 7 of our packet tonight. But it mentions, you know, what President Bartelli, the statement that she read, and it talked about the LLD policy 201 LLD Board of Trustees Code of Conduct, which mentions that the board will make fundraising decisions as a whole, and then the board should decide on appropriate recipients of fundraising communications and when outreach occurs. And so again, and then the last part of that sentence is, trustees may not solicit donations or fundraise without specific board approval. And we discussed it. We all approved it at that meeting. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else there is to say at this point, other than we all agreed that we were going to follow this procedure and this policy that we approved. And so we need to make sure that we're doing it from that meeting on January 7th on out.
I don't know if anybody else has, any other trustees want to chime in, but so far in my notes, I have 1 through 4 as agreed upon by the group here in terms of moving forward with our campaign to fundraise, and that's to contact the friends, put information on the website, put information in the newsletter, which will hit every home in our district, and then also have some internal information in the library regarding a display and flyers and other things inside. So I think this is a really good advancement of an already great campaign where we've already reached, spoiler alert, 29% of our goal. So I think that's positive.
I do have a question because you were talking about cash and people donating cash, and then it made me think about how, sometimes you see in some of the schools they have like penny wars or like jars where they collect like some kind of fund or fundraising thing where they ask kids to bring in spare change and put it in containers and things like that. I don't know if that's something that anyone has talked about at all at the Advocacy and Outreach Committee, or if that's on anyone's radar. That we could say, hey, like if kids want to donate some change that they have or whatever, like drop it in something to just kind of, I know it's not a lot, but you might get a lot, who knows? If there's just a spot to put, some spare change.
So Emily, we did talk about that, and we're not that far down the road yet to decide whether we're going to approach that or not. Obviously Tatiana's going to talk about, we're going through renovation now. So we identified a spot. Is it certainly something we may want to do? That, your parents, the child comes in with their parents and, oh, look, it's a light bright. Can we donate towards it? Yes, we've discussed it, but there's been no final decision as to whether we're going to pursue that or not.
Right, and that makes sense just because of the fact that, again, as you said, like security-wise, where would that even go? So it just popped into my head, which is why I brought it up, and I appreciate that you, the committee, have already discussed that.
I just wanted to mention that because the committee has already discussed it, I've discussed it with the Director of Youth Services, and he's not comfortable with having the project, the installation connected with finances with children. So he would prefer to have the installation not be financially kind of connected to the kids in terms of kids donating pennies or whatever. So that's why at the last committee meeting, I suggested if we wanted to involve children, is to involve them in a creative kind of branch versus a financial light. So that's why the kind of the coloring page idea came up for me. It's not to say that, we can't have another discussion about it or anything like that, but I wanted to share his thoughts on kids and change and
That's great.
installation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, it popped into my head and I didn't, know any of the discussion that had gone on already about it. So thank you.
Just adding to that, since we're on the topic of cash donations and, just in general, if there is any board, I'll call it interest in there being some sort of cash donation box on the library's premises, that might then help discourage anybody who wants to donate and donate it, sort of anonymously from having to think that they have to go through a staff member or trustees to just throw cash at them. You know what I mean? Like my thought is like if it's just in a labeled box, it got to the library, that you donated it in cash, so you're not expecting it to be, in other, ways handled like it would, like with a receipt, like if you do a more formal donation type thing. I'm just throwing that out there to say, if we if we think that's a better way to handle people who want to donate cash, then let's consider it.
Any other comments, Trustee Sullivan?
No, I was just wondering, Sarah, you've been really quiet. Especially since you have children and we're talking about, involving children to a certain extent. What are your thoughts?
The change thing, I think I had said at kind of at the end of the last advocacy meeting is it was just an idea, but we kind of like talked through it and it's like maybe it's not really a good idea because it's the cash, the kids. It's so I really like though the half sheet of the coloring page, like going in the curbside bags, and like that's great. I didn't even think of that. It's because even teens and they have younger siblings and stuff. I really like that because it made me think of like the chili peppers at Chili. It's like, oh, donate $1, your kid can color and we put it up. Just quickly, I'm very hesitant just because of the times of fundraising and going full throttle, which I voiced at the last meeting. But I'm all on board of going through and the board, like you said, for the policy. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who owns a business. I'm not going to be soliciting anybody. I kind of felt like this was going really fast. There isn't like this urgent need at the moment on my point of view. So I felt like it does need to slow down a little bit because that renovation is starting. And that's like the biggest thing. That's on everybody's radar. And it's like if we put something else that's big, that's like, now we're asking for more. I feel like just at this time, the timing might not be the best. But it doesn't say that it can't happen, just maybe it's going a little too fast. But that's just my point of view.
Okay, so it sounds like out of the 5 things we talked about, we're comfortable with the first 4, which includes reaching out to the friends, putting the information on the website, putting the donation form in the newsletter, doing some more donation information in the library, and we need to rethink kind of business fundraising aspect. And the AOC meeting, next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 10th, which gives us an opportunity. That's at 1 o'clock for anybody who wants to join. Gives us an opportunity to kind of put our heads together as an AOC committee and say, hey, this is, what we'd like to do going forward. Does that sound everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's that.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, staff reports, Director Weinstein's report.
Okay, so on January 7th, we concluded the Winter Read 2021 with a total of 893 patrons who participated this year. And I just thank the staff for their creativity and for all the planning that went into the kickoff, which was great, and for promoting the program throughout the holiday season. And I just wanted to make a quick mention about the meetings that the board has had and the committees have had. We've met a lot during the holiday season. I commend everybody for making those meetings. Not every institution holds meetings during the holidays, and actually some of them cancel them, so good for us. We met 6 separate times during a 30-day window from last month to this month, so we're doing good work as far as I'm concerned. And Mark mentioned this earlier, the department directors and I visited Merchandise Mart. Mark came with us, Magda and Amy of Sheehan Nagel Hartray, and we evaluated some public pieces of furniture in the youth and adult departments. And it was really important to assess them in person to check their durability, their stability, actually set on top of a table, and the material types of some of the pieces. Most of them will go, I think most of the things we saw were in youth services. There was some soft seating for youth services, as well as some teen chairs that were very heavy duty and interestingly shaped, and some adult public tables. And we are also, just a reminder to everybody, we'll be utilizing about 50% of the furniture we currently have as well. So that was interesting. And then Mark mentioned also that we met, the department directors, the IT manager and I met with Mark to discuss the phasing aspect of the renovation. And we talked about the staffing of the public desks during phasing, temporary offices for staff, and then collection allocation during phases. And so phase one is basically going to require that administration, technical services, and adult services relocate our offices and station some adult services staff alongside the circulation services staff at the main desk. And then the meeting rooms here will also be used for some staff as well as housing certain collections. Phase two will involve stationing circulation and adult services offices in the newly renovated YS area, along with modifying the department to accept some shelving to provide some adult services materials. And that's going to happen while the other half of the building is constructed. So working within these arrangements is not going to be easy. But the goal is to keep, obviously, the library open during the renovation and to provide as much service and materials as we can during the renovation. And I'll say this now, and I'll repeat this as we move forward. Some parts of the collection will be unavailable. Some will be stored off-site. And there's going to be more conversations with the department directors regarding, this topic, what will be stored off-site, how we select and how we choose to keep materials. We will continue to receive materials during the renovation because we want our patrons to continue to have new materials. But again, some items will be off-site. And I think doing this hard assessment, this evaluation right now is going to help us navigate the chaos that is to come regarding the renovation and all the phases. But the good news is I have a really good team. The staff here are on board, and yeah, some things are a little scary and a little daunting, but we've got a great team, and I think we'll have a great plan that'll work well for the staff as well as for the patrons ahead. And then lastly, I just want to thank the board for agreeing to most of the recommendations of the Advocacy and Outreach Committee. I also want to thank everybody publicly who's donated. Our first tier of letters went out mostly to elected officials and local leaders in town, and past trustees, as well as a couple of organizations. And as of now, we've raised $4,405. And again, that's 29% of our goal. So I think that's great. And all donors, and as well as future donors, will receive an acknowledgement letter for tax purposes or just record keeping purposes. And all donors will be publicly recognized once we reach our goal. I think this is a great start. We've only been at this for about a month. So I think it's great. And I just want to thank everybody who's donated, and all of the committee work and all of the thought has gone through towards this. It's been very thoughtful. We're trying to be as careful as possible. And I think it's been a great first launch. And that's it.
Any questions for Director Weinstein? Emily?
I'm just curious, and I think we've talked about this before, but it escapes me. So with the meeting rooms being transformed into staff spaces and collection, what is the plan for us as a board for future meetings?
We're working on it.
I know we've talked about it but then like, we're not there tonight. So I didn't know if we were thinking we would need to continue meeting virtually or if there would be other places inside the library we could meet or what.
It probably will not be in the library, and I'll just go over the requirements. So per the Open Meetings Act, we have to provide a space that is convenient for the public. So outside of COVID, we have to provide a public space that the community can come to listen and provide public comment. If we do anything virtually, the president of the board will be in person, staff will be in person at that publicly convenient location, and the board can still attend virtually. If we find a location where everybody can attend and COVID is waning a bit, we will do that. So we have not yet secured board meeting space, but we again are working on it.
Thank you. And I figure our February's meeting should still be fine at the library, right? It's March and on where we potentially need to be elsewhere.
More than likely, yes.
More than likely.
Yes.
But who knows? All right. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions? Thank you. Assistant Director's report, Beth.
Yes, as mentioned in my report, the library partners with the Village of Lisle to provide floodplain maps and documents for the area. The Village of Lisle provides the documents and the updates to those documents, and library staff catalog these and include them in our reference collection. And this is something that's happening right now, and our adult services staff is working with also our technical services staff as far as to catalog and making sure that what's in our catalog is actually on our shelves. So we're doing that right now. And also I wanted to mention that this week, library staff updated our AEDs or defibrillators. And we put new pads and batteries into those devices. And in the library here, we have 2. And they are now up to date through the next year, through 2023. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Beth? Okay, move on. Agenda item 8 is new business. 8A is to appoint a committee to prepare the 2022-23 working budget. And I will officially appoint a committee of the whole to discuss and prepare fiscal years 2022-2023 working budget. In the coming months, the board will meet as a whole to discuss the forthcoming budget. These meetings may be separate or be in conjunction with a regular board meeting. The director and I will work on a schedule soon and alert the board to the schedule. Any questions? Item 8B is to approve LLD policy 345, reference and readers advisory services. May I have a motion to adopt in a second, and then the director can provide an explanation.
Sorry, I was jumping the gun. I move to approve LLD policy 345, reference and readers advisory services. I'll second.
Thank you.
Karen.
Any discussion?
Okay. So policy 345 has been reviewed by the Personnel Policy Committee. The packet contains an edited draft and a clean copy for easier reading. This policy hasn't been updated since 2002. It was a policy that was originally titled Adult Services, and the content really referred to reference service, and the library performs reference and readers advisory services in both adult and youth services. In fact, we serve adults, youth, and teens. So we needed to update this policy to be more inclusive of all departments, as well as correctly title the policy. We also eliminated some outdated information and repetitive language. And this policy also follows the ILA standards guidebook recommendations, and that's the library's best practices manual. That's it. Any questions?
Call the roll, please. Or any discussion?
Okay.
Okay, Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Policy approved. Item 8C, approve LLD policy 360, library-sponsored public programs. May I have a motion to approve in a second, and then the director can provide an explanation.
I move to approve LLD policy 360, library-sponsored public programs.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, and again, policy 360, this too has not been updated since 2002. It was time. This policy was also not titled correctly. We changed the title to library-sponsored public programs just to make it a little bit more clear to the public. We also used the ILA standards guidebook to applicably update this particular policy and also removed outdated and repetitive information.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I was reading it and I don't know, maybe it's just me, it's paragraph 5. It says registration may be required for certain programs due to capacity, so that extra S should be off, correct?
That's my error, yes.
All right.
Good catch, Sarah. With that correction noted, Beth, you call for it.
Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan, Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
and Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Thank you. Policy approved. Next to the committee chairman. Item 9 is opportunity for trustee comments. We'll start alphabetically this time. I will go first. Good meeting. I just wanted to comment on the quarterly reports and thank the department directors for those. Very interesting. On small note, I'm really glad to see that the art posters were updated. That's one of my favorite things, and I thought it might need a little updating, so I'm glad to see that it got done. That's it for me. Trustee Larson, Secretary Larson, I'm sorry.
I really don't have anything. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the construction start in March. Should be fun.
Thank you. Trustee Norton.
Thanks to everyone. As I usually give thanks, same thanks to all staff and board and et cetera. That includes you, Mr. Rogers. And so if I don't make it specific, always just it includes everybody. But just also want to say thank you again for the quarterly staff reports. I do want to admit that I should send an email and ask a little bit more about some of the things that are very library specific in like statistical graphs and things, or in the things that were noted in, and I don't want to, get into too much specifics, but there's some stuff in there that's pretty library specific in terms of its technical, like, what the employees have been up to in the last quarter. So I don't want to ask the team to do more work, but I just want to point out that I definitely read it. I definitely didn't understand 100% of it. So I'll be asking for just a little bit more info to train myself up.
Thank you. Trustee Sullivan.
Thanks everybody for their work, and I also am going to talk about some of the quarterly reports. found the circulation services report particularly interesting. We're continuing to sell a lot of license renewal stickers. A quarter sell 80 stickers. That just seems amazing to me. I guess the way, if you think about how the impact of COVID, or COVID has impacted some of those license, what do you call them, license renewal places. I know that there's problems getting in there, so to come into the library is much more convenient. So that's, a really good service we're offering. And then also the bottom of that page, it talks about new library cards and renewals. And it seems like we're doing a really strong job there. So even though one family can have one card, it's no longer required each person in a family have a single card. They can all share a card. I think it's so impressive that we're continuing to have such high numbers of people wanting library cards. So, it's just it was to show how much our library is used and appreciated. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Turner?
Just want to thank everybody again. I appreciate the fact that Tatiana reached out to Youth Services to ask their opinion about the jar and collecting coins. I think it's important that you get a different perspective when you reached out to Will and he said he didn't really want the collection of monies to be sort of associated with the children, something I hadn't thought about, but I appreciate the fact that you reach out to the source and you get their opinion, and that will be a big part of our decision making. So I'm looking forward to the renovation, and are we going to have a groundbreaking ceremony?
Yes.
All right. Or a swinging of the hammer, or whatever it is that we're going to be doing.
The hammer sounds about right. We'll talk about that here. Maybe the next board meeting we'll have that on the agenda.
I've got a couple sledgehammers I can bring and crowbars.
You gotta paint them gold.
Good idea.
Thank you. Trustee Wynn?
Just kind of piggybacking on everybody, thank you so much for everybody and all the work that everybody's doing, especially Mr. Rogers, staying on schedule during this time, plus the lead times. I mean, it's awesome. And I'm kind of coming in the middle, almost, at the end of it, but that's awesome. And for Tatiana, like you and your team and your staff are just amazing. You guys really are, and you work so hard, especially behind the scenes. And I just wanted to say, I talked to Will, and I loved the scavenger hunt that was upstairs that the kids, I didn't even know it was going on, and my kids were like, "Ooh, what's this paper?" And they looked and they're like, "We got to do this." And it was so cool to keep those kids engaged, even though the in-person programming is suspended for now. But it was a really good idea. But yeah, just thanks, and I'm excited and can't wait.
Great, thank you. And the last item on the agenda is to adjourn. And I have a motion and a second.
Emily.
Hey, Marjorie, you skipped me for
I'm in a hurry, Emily.
I mean, if you don't want me to talk anymore.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Can I talk?
Yes, you can.
Before we adjourn, okay, thanks. I just wanted to say how I really appreciate the fact that as a board, all of the trustees feel comfortable talking and sharing their thoughts and ideas and opinions on all the different topics that we've talked about tonight. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate that we all are able to give our voice and that our voices are valued. So I appreciate that. So thank you, Marjorie, for being our fearless leader. I appreciate that as well. You really, every time I hear things like, and the board president has to sign off on this, and the board president has this, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of work, Marjorie, that you're doing. And so I really appreciate all of that you're doing. Mark, I wanted to thank you just for being so with everything and updating your documents and going through and explaining things to us. And I just feel like, I feel like you're really holding our hands and making sure that we know what's going on and understanding the process. And because I knew nothing about this beforehand, I just feel so much more informed. And I really, I credit you for that and for keeping us going. So thank you. And then I also wanted to, again, thank all the board for approving the policies we put forth tonight. It always feels good when you've worked on something and then people say, yeah, that's good, let's go. So I appreciate that too. And Tatiana and Beth, thank you for, just keeping the library going and all the work that you're doing and just being such positive leaders in the library and for the staff. And I still feel it anytime I enter the library. There's just the culture that you're cultivating there amongst the staff is, I don't know, I can feel it when I walk in that people are happy to be working there and they feel safe and they feel there's just the way that they greet me or they greet anyone when they come in and talk with them, and whether you're checking out materials or you're saying, can you help me find this, or any of that stuff. It's just we have a fantastic staff and we're very lucky, and I really credit our director for maintaining that and for surrounding herself with people who also cultivate that in their departments as well. So that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Again, I apologize for forgetting you. Now, I think we're
It's okay, Marjorie.
okay. You'll forgive me? So the
Absolutely.
last item is to adjourn. May I have a motion and a second?
I move to adjourn.
A second?
I'll second.
I don't think there's any discussion. All in favor?
Now we have to take a roll call
We have to take a roll.
when it's
Aye.
the rules if we're remote.
Okay, I'm
Sorry.
Roll call.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
and Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Okay.
We are officially adjourned at 8:39 PM. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.